Right, shifting our focus now is a US-Iran agreement proving to be elusive once again. Even as the negotiations continue, Iran has stressed that its fingers are on the trigger. On the other hand, US President Donald Trump has threatened Iran of an escalation once again if it doesn't agree on a deal. The anticipation has been building since the last 48 hours. At 4:30 p.m. Washington time on Saturday last, Donald Trump claimed that an agreement has largely been negotiated and it will be announced shortly. 17 hours later, Trump changed his tune, saying that US will not be rushed into the negotiations. In fact, he also noted that the naval blockade of Iran will remain in place until an agreement is reached. Now, Donald Trump's frustration came to the fore once again a few hours earlier when he warned Iran of resuming military operations. He said, and I'm quoting him here, "It will only be a great deal for all or no deal at all." According to him, the deal being negotiated currently will be the exact opposite of the 2015 JCPOA deal signed during Barack Obama's tenure as the president, which he claimed paved the way for Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. Trump also urged countries like Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Turkey, Jordan, Egypt and Qatar to join the Abraham Accords when the United States signs an agreement with Iran. Among the Gulf nations, the UAE and Bahrain have already signed this pact that normalizes ties with Israel. Trump has also expressed hope that Iran will join the Abraham Accords. However, Tehran has not given any indication of this so far. Similarly, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has termed the deal a work in progress. While saying that America is going to give diplomacy every chance to succeed, he left the scope open for resuming military action against Iran.
This issue, no one has done more, and no one has been more serious about the threat of a nuclear Iran than President Trump has been. And so I'm very confident, and we should all be very confident, that we're either going to have a good agreement or we're going to have to deal with it another way. We'd prefer to have a good agreement.
Iran, though, remains unfazed by the U.S. pressure. A day earlier, swaths of Iranians waved flags and chanted slogans during a ceremony organized by the IRGC to pay tribute to the victims of the wars with U.S. and Israel. On this occasion, Mojtaba Khamenei's senior advisor, General Mohsen Rezai, threatened that the Iranian armed forces have their fingers on the trigger and warned that the war could expand to the Red Sea, Bab al-Mandeb Strait and the Indian Ocean. Iran's foreign ministry, though, conceded that Tehran and Washington have reached an understanding on many issues. At the same time, it dismissed the claim that an agreement with the U.S. is imminent.
Of the negotiations is on ending the war, and at this stage we are not discussing the details of the nuclear issue. Threats, pressure, portrayals, and the publication of caricatures are part of political maneuvering on the other side of the world.
Amid this, Iran's fast news agency claimed that Iranian forces shot down a hostile drone over the Persian Gulf with Arshek-Amangir, which it described as a new interceptor system with hidden abilities. On the diplomatic front, a delegation led by Iran's key negotiator Mohammad Ghalibaf arrived in Qatar as part of the diplomatic process to end the war. The delegation included Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi as well as the central bank governor Abdul Nasser Hemmati. Now remember, Iran has been pushing for the release of its frozen funds abroad as well. Now, one of the major obstacles in a potential deal appears to be the Strait of Hormuz, as its virtual closure has triggered a major energy crisis globally. While Donald Trump claimed that this strategic waterway will be reopened after the deal is signed, Iran's foreign ministry said that the agreement has no specific details on the management of Hormuz. Now, even as it denied charging tolls, it revealed that Tehran is now collecting fee for navigational services from ships that transit the Hormuz. But the U.S. has consistently opposed such an arrangement. Both sides continue to assert its control over the Hormuz. For instance, remember, CENTCOM has claimed that it has redirected hundreds of commercial ships seeking to enter or exit Iranian ports as part of its naval blockade so far. The IRGC Navy stated that 117 vessels had crossed Hormuz between Tuesday and Saturday last week in coordination with its forces. The other key point of contention, remember, remains the nuclear issue. While Donald Trump continues to insist on not compromising over Iran, handing over enriched uranium, Iran has ruled out discussing it at this juncture, thereby raising doubts over the viability of this deal. So where does this leave Netanyahu? Well, it's proving to be a slippery slope for Trump. While Iran has stressed that stopping war on all fronts, including Lebanon, will be part of the potential agreement between the two nations, Israel has continued to bomb South Lebanon to target Hezbollah. After speaking to Trump, Netanyahu claimed that the U.S. president affirmed Israel's right to defend itself against threats from Lebanon. However, it remains to be seen whether Trump will risk putting a deal with Iran in jeopardy to placate Netanyahu. With no clear timeline in sight for a possible U.S.-Iran agreement, the world remains on tenterhooks even as clamor grows for lasting peace in West Asia. A long time ago, most of the world's biggest companies came from Europe and America. They built famous car brands, steel giants, technology firms, and pharmaceutical companies that dominated global markets for decades. In fact, countries like India were largely seen as consumers of those very products and not owners of those global brands. But a new India is changing that equation. India's economic rise over the past 3 decades has been one of the most remarkable growth stories of modern world. From being known as a developing economy, struggling with shortages, slow growth, and limited global influence, India has now transformed itself into one of the fastest growing major economies on the planet. Today, India is the world's 4th largest economy by nominal GDP, with an economy valued at nearly $4.15 trillion and an ambitious roadmap to become a $5 trillion economy by 2027. In late April this year, Sun Pharmaceuticals announced an $11.75 billion deal to acquire New York-listed women's health and biosimilars company, Organon & Corporation. Now, this deal was part of a much larger trend. In recent months alone, Tata Motors has acquired Italy-based commercial vehicle giant Iveco. And these acquisitions are happening across sectors, from automobiles and tech to pharmaceuticals, telecom, retail, metals, and mining. Let's quickly get to a closer look. India's automobile sector is no longer just manufacturing vehicles for the world now. It is owning some of the world's most iconic automotive brands. Tata Motors made global headlines when it acquired luxury British brands Jaguar and Land Rover from more recently. The company expanded further by acquiring the Italian commercial vehicle maker Iveco Group. Eicher Motors brought the legendary Royal Enfield brand. Mahindra & Mahindra acquired the historic British motorcycle brand BSA to revive one of the oldest names in motorcycling. And TVS Motor Company acquired premium British superbike manufacturer Norton Motorcycles. India has long been called the pharmacy of the world, and Indian healthcare companies are now expanding aggressively overseas as well. Sun Pharmaceutical Industries announced the massive acquisition of Organon & Co. and, in fact, strengthening its global position in women's healthcare and biosimilars. Dr. Reddy's Laboratories expanded its footprint in the U.S. by acquiring the generic formulations portfolio of Mind Pharma. India's technology sector has been moving rapidly as well, from outsourcing to ownership now. Coforge acquired Silicon Valley-based AI and digital engineering company Encora. Wipro strengthened its consulting business with the acquisition of the UK-based financial consultancy firm Capco. HCL Technologies, another one. They expanded globally by acquiring multiple software assets from IBM, including Lotus Notes and Celerity Fintech. Not just this, remember, Indian companies are making major moves in telecom and consumer retail as well. Bharti Airtel, for starters, acquired a significant stake in Britain's BT Group and earlier expanded into Africa through the acquisition of Zain Africa. Some of India's biggest global acquisitions have come from the metals and mining sector. Tata Steel acquired Anglo-Dutch steel giant Chorus Group in one of India's most high-profile international takeover deals. Hindalco Industries acquired Canada-based Novelis, helping the company become one of the world's leading aluminium producers. What we are witnessing today is much bigger than a series of business deals. It is the rise of India as a global economic force. Well, if you've ever owned a pet, you have probably been tired to trying to understand what they're trying to say. A bark at the door, a cat meowing non-stop, or a dog staring silently at its food bowl. Pet owners have guessed what those sounds and expressions mean for years now. But that guessing game will soon come to an end, because a Chinese startup claims that artificial intelligence may just help bridge that communication gap. A China-based company has developed an AI-powered smart collar that claims to translate pet sounds into human language with up to 95% accuracy. This device is called PetChat, and it has been developed by Hangzhou-based startup Meng Xiaohui. It is powered by Alibaba's Cloud's Qwen AI model. Now, the smart collar uses built-in microphones, motion sensors, and accelerometers to analyze a pet's vocal sounds, body movements, and behavioral patterns. The company says the system has been trained on millions of pet vocal samples to identify different emotions and responses. In simple terms, essentially, the device attempts to interpret what a pet may be feeling, whether it is excited, hungry, anxious, or just seeking your attention. The collar weighs just 27 grams, and it connects wirelessly to a handheld device that displays the AI-generated translations. The product is priced at around 799 yuan, which is roughly over $117. The product has already generated massive online interest, with thousands of pre-orders ahead of its official release later this month. While the idea may sound a little futuristic, remember, this is not the first attempt that has been made to translate pets' communication. Japan introduced a device called Bowlingual more than 2 decades ago. It classified dog barks and basic emotional categories. Later, mobile apps such as Meow Talk also attempted to interpret cat vocalizations. But the latest device uses modern AI models and behavioral data to go a step further. It moves from simple sound detection to context-based interpretation. But questions, of course, will remain about how accurate such translations can really be. After all, animals do not communicate in human language, and much of their behavior depends on context, on movement and training that they received over a period of time. Still continuing about artificial intelligence, well, AI has become an inevitable reality of our lives. Firms across the world are now heavily investing into AI, and they're even cutting down on jobs as a result. However, a top tech executive's revelation about the cost of artificial intelligence itself has come into focus. Remember earlier, Brian Catanzaro, the vice president of applied deep learning at NVIDIA, told Access that the cost of compute is far beyond the costs of the employees. His comments challenged the growing belief that layoffs combined with AI adoption automatically improve profitability. Essentially, it implies that human labor might be more cost efficient. This is not an isolated case. As per reports, Uber exhausted its entire 2026 AI budget by April itself due to the costs incurred on Anthropic's Claude Code. Advisory firm Gartner estimated that IT spending across the world is likely to reach $6.31 trillion in 2026, which is up 13.5% from last year. This increase is being driven by sustained momentum across AI infrastructure, software, and cloud services, which includes the cost of AI subscriptions. This also comes as top companies across the world have announced massive layoffs linked to AI this year. While Oracle has already sacked over 20,000 employees, Citigroup is cutting an equivalent number of jobs by the end of this year. And this is not all. Remember, tech giant Meta laid off 8,000 employees. That amounts to almost 10% of its workforce. In May, Standard Chartered decided to cut over 7,000 jobs as it accelerated the use of AI, thereby impacting 15% of its back office employees. Now, amid all of this, Anthropic co-founder Chris Olah issued a dire warning. He warned that artificial intelligence could displace human labor on a very large scale. He also pointed out the problem of AI gains not being shared globally and being concentrated in rich countries alone.
Real possibility that AI will displace human labor at a very large scale. If that happens, supporting those displaced will be a moral imperative of historic proportions. This task will be difficult enough, but I worry most dialogue misses an even harder challenge. AI development is concentrated in a handful of wealthy nations. How will we ensure that the gains of AI are shared globally? We do not have a mechanism for this. It is an unsolved problem.
With rising costs incurred on AI, will firms review their approach now towards job cuts? Or is this a trend that will be here to stay for a longer term? One thing is apparent. Companies with big IT budgets may need to prove returns on AI spending over a period of time.